Welcome to another session with Codebase Technologies on banking the unbanked. Now, earlier today, actually, you heard me speak with Mr. Gold of Centurion Corp, and Centurion Corp and us are working. Codebase Technologies are working together um, from a really strong engagement viewpoint, where we're trying to help a non-financial services company completely in a different space to provide financial services to the unbanked in Singapore, who would be um, typically your migrant worker community. So I'm saying that because I want to use that as a good example of how companies can think a little bit outside of the box and help to bring that conversation and those ideas to financial services institutions as well. So let's kick off. I'm going to speak a little bit about a topic that's close to my heart from a financial services perspective, is bringing financial services to people who just cannot avail it today. And let's look at what's actually happening in that space today, right? So let me start by sharing for the unfamiliar and people who have just joined us today a bit about who we are and what we do. So Codebase Technologies. So I'll start with myself. I'm Samier Khan. I'm the managing director at Codebase Technologies in Asia Pacific, based out of Singapore. Codebase Technologies is a global open API banking solutions provider that enables banks and financial institutions, both conventional and Islamic, as well as companies in the emerging fintech ecosystem, to demystify digital financial services. Now, we help organizations create and deliver innovative and intuitive experiences um, across their entire customer life cycle. We are recognized as one of the world's fastest growing open API banking solutions provider. Um, with our vision to disrupt the way technology is used for a greater purpose, we engineer impactful digital financial experiences for conventional and Islamic banks and fintechs, neobanks, lenders, and startups, and probably institutions or large organizations that are not even in the financial services space, but have a captive audience or have a captive market who they already, provide certain solutions for. In the case of Centurion, they house the migrant workers in dormitories. They house students in hostels. For a company like that to provide financial services to their residents is unique, is a great play, and yeah, we help them to do that as well. Now, we've launched several digital challenger and neobanks and financial propositions across UAE, Malaysia, Bahrain, UK, and Africa. We are in 4 continents, and we have a proven success rate in terms of the propositions that we have proposed and the solutions that we have deployed from the perspective of unparalleled speed to market. Now, as a result, of those successes, Codebase Technologies has grown exponentially as a digital banking technology pioneer in the global banking industry. Um, Digibank is our award-winning suite. It is cloud-enabled, API-driven, highly adaptable. It's a highly adaptable digital banking platform, allowing institutions to deliver inclusive uh, digital financial services, if you will. Our open architecture embraces a diverse ecosystem of partners and vendors, driving collaborative experiences across the entire financial services landscape. The Digibank suite is built on a modular microservices architecture providing a robust and agile environment to launch new financial products, um, and launch, both from a scale perspective and and a speed perspective as well. Now, since uh, uh, we have a deep culture of innovation and excellence, uh, we've been able to help bring forward new generation of digital transformation in the whole financial segment at large. So, that's to give you a sense of who we are, to answer your question about who Codebase is and what we do. Now, let's dive into this interesting, topic of banking, the unbanked. If you look at the adults without financial services access, it's the number is I mean, it's like it's a very large number, and it doesn't come as a surprise. Uh, if you look at the spread, and if we've done well in our in our schooling, we'll understand that they're close to there are many countries, and in that, if you look at the global population from that perspective, about 1.7 billion adults today are unbanked, and specifically, we got to remember unbanked. There is a difference between underbanked and unbanked, and if you just look at from a business perspective, they're close to about 200 plus million small, micro, medium enterprises spread across different parts of the world, not getting paid in through a bank. They get paid sometimes in cash. I mean, most of the times in cash, obviously, and then that number is disparate depending upon which geography we speak of. So if you purely focus from a Southeast Asia uh, and an East Asia, or even a South Asia perspective, the number is close to about 60%, 58, 59% of both from a MSME and as well as from a retail, which is a individual user segment. The number is really very large, and therefore, I think it's important to look at that entire more than half of your marketplace, which is not being not does not have access to financial services. What's the impact of being unbanked? Well, if you're, and most of you who are watching this probably know this already, but it never hurts to bring the attention once again as to why we do what we do, and the impact of being unbanked is there are a lot of disadvantages, and one of them is that if you cannot record money and if you can't store money, you will not be able to one will not be able to build a credit history. Now, this could be brought into discussion or brought into perspective in different ways. First of all, the poverty segment that does not have bank accounts, does not have access to financial services, and therefore cannot build a credit history. And not having a credit history obviously results into the fact that uh, they um, they they can't they don't have a source of finance. And what that means is that for their emergency funds or their needs any financial needs, for any liquidity needs for that they have, and for emergency purposes, they'll have to go out to the market and borrow, and they don't go to institutions to actually borrow, which is not a good thing. And they might have to do that because while not having access to financial services also means that you don't have a place to store your money and manage your money. So you're not able to store, you're not able to move money, which is to make your payments in a secure way. You have to, and therefore, because you don't have a record, you will not get one would not get actually access to credit. And this this is not this is a huge problem. This makes it difficult for them, and therefore, in our endeavor to go to a cashless society, which is by and large a secure society, one has to think about these things. Movement of cash is not really good. It does not help remove poverty. It does not help the unbanked in any way. And we must think about what we can do to actually provide that help to them. Now, one of the things that, when I was speaking to Gold, one thing that came across was not many people have. Gold was a session. I had done an interview of Gold, who's a client of who we work with. He is the CTO of Centurion Corporate, and we are helping him with his journey to provide financial services to the underbanked and unbanked in Singapore and Malaysia. And that's a conversation that I referred to. Many of them don't have financial literacy, which means that they can't bank on their own time. They have to, and this is a dissuader. So for them to remove time and go out and actually go to a specific location and either transfer money or open a bank account or go to the bank account and do any financial transactions is they can't do it on their own time, and they get paid by they are hourly wage workers. So it is difficult, so we'll have to overcome those hurdles, and that's an impact when you look at being unbanked completely. So, while we spoke about barriers to access, I think clearly the lack of financial education, it does prevent people from using, financial products and services. They don't understand it. They don't understand the purpose of it, and therefore they don't learn. And sometimes, it is difficult. The learning curve is different. So when one wants to um, this is a barrier clearly, and if one wants to provide a solution, then one has to think about the barriers and kind of figure out a way of how to overcome those barriers. And therefore, uh, financial education has to be provided, and we have to look at it from a usability perspective, the UI UX of it, and we've got to make solutions available to them, or institutions will have to endeavor to make solutions available to them in a way where the learning curve can be mitigated. I mean, it's easy to learn and therefore easy to use. Um, Also, I think one of the barriers for financial inclusion, or which creates unbanked people, population at large, is valid identification of documents. So um, yes, there are societal platforms. Countries have come up with specific mandates to create national digital identity or national identity. In Passports are already there in certain countries like Philippines. You also get community, or I think cards, identification cards, which is from a small area perspective, from a municipal perspective. So from those perspectives, they have some identity, but they're disparate. In every country, there are different places and different identity forms, and therefore it becomes difficult. And especially for these people, for certain class of people, they just don't have an identity, and sometimes it's only because they're getting paid in cash, and therefore there is no need to really get an identity. But uh, the the other school of thought is that practically, in Southeast Asia being a great example, the mobile phone penetration has been significantly very high. In fact, you look at countries like Philippines, you look at countries like India, you look at Indonesia. I think there are smartphones. Maybe it's not fully used, but the phones are not being utilized to their full potential. But smartphones have penetrated into remote villages. People have phone lines, and therefore, I mean, mobile cell phone access, and therefore, there is some. form of identity that they do carry. So that's your mitigation to a barrier there. Um, Once you start to embark on a journey of having identities, and I didn't speak about governments putting up infrastructure, social infrastructure for national identity. But yes, governments are doing that, and then you do have national identity, and that helps for financial services institutions to identify and therefore provide access. But I think the larger issue also would be from a barrier perspective is also the identity itself. From a consumer protection, from a regulation, and that's been a talk, a big heavy talk that we constantly do on the podcast on Codebase Technologies podcast, Disruption Demystified, where I talk about open banking, open data, and consumer protection of data, as well as regulation. Sometimes market driven, sometimes regulatory driven. But data rights and data privacy is important. It's a barrier that one has to be cognizant of when you're helping institutions design a solution. For the purposes of financial inclusion. I think in the financial inclusion, from a financial inclusion perspective, women and people in rural areas are less likely to use financial services. Women who work there, the villagers who work either in micro, small, or medium enterprises within villages, or farmers, or who do kind of tailoring or anything that they do. Women workers usually get paid, and they're wage. They're on hourly wages or daily wages, and hence, more often than not, get paid in cash, and therefore, kind of it encourages the exclusion. Because then they feel they don't need financial services, but they actually do, and they're not trying to do anything about that. So, and I think opening uh, I think one of the things that we want to help institutions do is to really set up a transaction account, if nothing else, a transaction account, which probably is the first step to financial access to financial products. Now, what I mean by that is, and I'll go about sharing with you how we provide those solutions. But I think it's important to understand that that by itself, if you look at it, is the first step to mitigate or to eradicate, or your first step in the journey of eradication of financial, or the unbanked, so to speak, or the underbanked. You start your financial inclusion when you give them the first chance, or the first platform, or the first way to execute transactions. Uh, how we help institutions do that is sit down and talk with them, and align their and that's innovation, right? You look at the example where uh, can we just help these people to move money, so therefore payments, and can we then look at it from a perspective of what do they use most on the phones, when phones are being used by people in the rural areas, what do they use it for most? Communication, of course. And therefore they would look at apps where you can communicate, make calls, or send messages, which is just your data charge one time, monthly cost, and therefore you kind of want to make use the cheapest way of communicating. And then you move on to social media. You move on to platforms like WhatsApp, which provide you, or Facebook Messenger, any social media app, and you use that to communicate with your family, friends, and so on. Can we help? Can we enable them to actually, they can move pictures. They can take a picture, and they can, send a picture. They can move pictures, so they can move data from one phone to another phone. Is it possible for me to transfer money? If I need to send money to somebody else on the other side using WhatsApp, can I send money? Yeah, you can. Codebase has a solution for that. Codebase Technologies has a solution for that. So that's the way we bring about innovation in a way which can be consumed by people who are unbanked, and also their financial literacy is probably close to zero, and they really need to learn. So we leverage on what do they do, uh, and how can we make this learning easier for them, and make the usability of the product so simple that it will encourage rather than deter them to use the financial service being made available to them. So I think one's got to look at how what can I bring in there? Can I primarily bring in the concept of storing value? So can I bring that about? So yeah, I could potentially. I'm not a bank, but have I could I could get them to save, hold money. I could hold money for them by giving them a wallet, so they don't have a bank account, but they can store money in a wallet. So if I'm a worker and I'm transferring money from one part, maybe the capital city, to a village, or from, let's say, I'm working as a migrant worker in Singapore, and I can send money to my family in Indonesia, and they don't have a bank account. If they have a wallet on their mobile device. The money is being still stored there, and if that wallet allows them to make payments at a grocery store, if they want to buy something. And people are, we underestimate the fact that many of these people at the remote places, it's not necessary that they don't know e-commerce. There are easier ways of e-commerce industries also have kind of by and large improved their usability, and hence made it easier to shop online. Probably COVID did accelerate that part of the usability as well. And therefore, and I'm not saying that that's a huge market, but all I'm saying is that if people, if they can store money, they can move money to make payments, and therefore, with that infrastructure in place, they can also avail credit. I think that's a winning proposition. Now, yes, you probably have to get a banking license to become a bank, but one could, under the license of a existing bank, create a value proposition where onboarding can be done at a very low cost, and therefore makes sense for that particular institution, or that institution which is under a larger umbrella of a bank, to make because the onboarding will be cheaper. It becomes cost effective for them as a financial institution to provide services, to that segment, because more often than not, that segment gets left behind because the cost of maintaining those customers is high, and therefore they cannot be onboarded. Simple. Bank also is not really a charitable, not for charity institution, right? So it's a profit making institution, and therefore they have to look at those costs as well. And most of the things that I'm telling you today, from a financial services perspective, you would already know. But it's good to just revisit that thought process and understand, and that will help you understand how we help you with, help you with your planning. We help you as an advisor, and we also think in that manner, and that's why our products are architected, or are become innovative, because they're solving clearly a need in the market, and that's where Codebase is different from any other financial technology product player, right? So let's continue with the thought process around barriers to access. Religious regions, yeah, there are. Sometimes in pockets of Malaysia and Indonesia, one might have the thought process. that they would rather bank with something that is compliant to the religious beliefs of that community. And that is a barrier for access, because then they don't go out and bank with all. I mean, even if a bank is providing certain services in that remote area, they might not go and avail those services, and that's a deterrent for them. I think there's also, because the literacy levels are so low, sometimes there's a lack of trust, and that's a deterrent as well. And I think this was a survey done, and what you're seeing here in a graphical format is people who are asked these questions, and the blue is they cited along with other reasons why they didn't want to, why they thought that it was a barrier to access, and probably the red is from an only reason perspective. And if you look at the only reason, what you will see there is a large part of it is not enough money. Now, not enough money, and either if you that's one aspect, or if you look at family member already has an account, they're not looking at it from, or the literacy levels are low because they're not looking at it from a perspective of, if I need immediate money, then what do I do? I can't, they're not looking at it from that perspective. For them, it's still easier to ask for money from a source that's not a financial institution, and that's not something that brings about a good outcome. um, and sometimes there are instances where only one person in the family has an account, and therefore the others feel that they don't need to have an account, and that also does not give them, from an identity perspective, from a credit worthiness perspective. There is no credit score, there's no identity, and therefore that restricts it restricts them from availing certain financial services that could be made available to them, right? So I think I just want you to take a look at this. It is a 380 billion dollar opportunity. So let's just kind of soak that in, and just let's just understand that when we embark on this journey of, you know on banking the unbanked, that is the level. I mean, that's the value of opportunity. But clearly, the opportunity is to make a positive impact. So while you make a positive impact, you also uh, are looking at a marketplace which has enormous potential. So uh, that should be encouragement enough for anybody to, as a financial institution, to really look at it as a mandate for the next 2022 or next 5 years. How do we actually achieve that, right? So how does Codebase really help, right? So from our mission perspective, you know, the leadership, I mean, Codebase, I think from a corporate genetic or corporate mindset perspective, we're here to use technology for the greater good, and it's everybody's, everybody at Codebase does believe it completely. And I'm not saying that nobody thinks in this manner. Everybody in the world wants to do good, of course. But you will see that the way we have structured our propositions and what we're doing in Asia Pacific, and of course globally, of course, what we're doing globally and then specifically in Asia Pacific, I should put it that way, has been around positioning these propositions to traditional banks, traditional financial institutions, to businesses or banks that do want to enter into the financial services space, and also to larger corporations who are satisfying a particular need in the market, and helping them to leverage that audience or that client base that they have, check for how. how much of financial access they have, and if not, um, have that made available. A good example would be what WeBank or Kakao Bank have done. They were a chat platform, uh, and they had such a large user base. And well, one could argue that they were banked people. They could buy expensive phones, but then they were gig culture. It was a gig econ. I mean, in this gig economy, it's hard to have a credit score. Because you don't have a fixed job or a fixed income, and therefore, credit bureaus don't look upon you as somebody who, or you're a high risk to a financial institution if they were to lend to you, and therefore it becomes difficult, right? So how do you like really? I mean, and these are the industry players that we talk to and try and create solutions in a way which are easily deployable, right? So I think what we really do and the mindset from an engineering perspective is to think about, when we're speaking of financial institutions, to eliminate obstacles. I think empowering using their mobiles, and the best way I can articulate this is just how I shared with you a while back on many of them having mobile phones, and therefore potentially have, I mean, not potentially, they have an identity. A phone number is an identity, can be an identity. How do we use that as an identity? And that's empowering by mobile devices. Hyper personalizing the products and services, and this is all about UI UX, right? So when you heard this morning when I interviewed Gold from Centurion Corp about how during the time of COVID, worker communities or the migrant worker communities in Singapore who actually aggregate on a weekend in those specific based on the ethnic groups, they congregate in certain locations in the country. Because they get their food, the kind of food that they eat, or the kind of clothes that they wear, they have access to all that, right? So it would be so crowded, and at a time like this pandemic, it would be impossible to really, that by and large was why there were so many cases in the first place, right? So and if everybody is kind of put into a mode of self isolation, then I think and that's one of the things that I talk about, that financial services or the change that open banking and financial services and the innovations that have been happening in financial services and the fintech at large have only made self isolation so easy, because you don't need to go to a bank. You don't need to see cash. Actually, you don't need to handle cash. You can make payments from your home. You can buy products and services at your home, and that makes for easy self isolation. So, coming back to what we were talking about here in banking the underbanked, I think personalization would mean ensuring that the phone, using the mobile device, understanding what they spend on, what their needs are, and making that available to them, which is not really rocket science. I think it's being done. It can be done, and it's so readily done. So if you kind of make it easy for them, it solves your issues of learnability and so on, and therefore these products become habits to them. And then of course, we also leverage local resources. So we the way we go about looking at technology deployment, well, that's another discussion, but I guess that's what we aim to do to make it easier for you. um, I cannot really. I'm spending a lot of time on this, but I just wanted to, at another point, we can talk about how we do this, and there are podcasts that I've recorded. But really, from if you look at Digibank, the way it is a complete digital bank in the box platform. Built on our own proprietary technologies, which is highly modular in terms of its construct, and very scalable, very robust, I mean, from a connectivity perspective, very robust, cloud ready, open architecture, um, as superior in terms of security, performance, but from an enterprise grade, I mean, highly secure, and also completely compliant, because we work with regulators in more than 64 countries to date, that we've sat down with regulators to understand. We work with them in terms of understanding how our product would fit, in that geography. So I can tell you for sure that when we kickstarted our operations here in APAC, we had already understood, had those conversations done with, where uh, we knew that our product stack was completely compliant. So if I am speaking to you and you're based as an institution in Indonesia, you can be assured that we comply to Indonesian, central bank regulations. If we are working with you and you're based in Malaysia, we comply to the central bank there. In Singapore, yes. In Philippines, yes. In Mekong, let's say Vietnam, Cambodia, Laos, yes, we do. So we comply to, we work with the regulators to make sure that we're already compliant. So you don't have to worry about that when you're talking to us about a deployment of our solution in your ecosystem. But in this race to, not a race to, but when open banking started, some of the outcomes of open banking was, of course, innovation, financial inclusion, but it also caused, I mean, it also created opportunity for technology companies, and Digibank as a product suite being one of them, and Codebase Technologies, one of the proponents of this, uh, is like an API factory or an API aggregator, where we have built, to date, about 470 plus. I understand 477 plus, could be 490. And but our target is that by the end of this year, and there's a team that's working heavily on this to create a set of 900 APIs. Now, you may ask, why would we want to do that? It's clearly to, so that you don't have to do it from if you're an institution, you don't have to build a complete stack, have a professional services team, and really, have resources that probably you're not going to, build an IT organization, let's put it that way, and build those APIs and manage those APIs. All you need to do is work with us. We would give you, APIs on onboarding, document management, AML and fraud, loan and collateral payments, of course, transfers, you name it. And, we could, so essentially, a digital bank in the box, sometimes I say, I mean, I know what it means, but sometimes I say that, with just the APIs that we have, we could build a bank for you. Of course, you would have to work with another bank, and their, infrastructure that they have would be kind of the central nervous system or the spinal cord in the brain. But your APIs would be talking to that entire ecosystem there, the back end, so to speak. And you could run a complete bank, so it's so fast to deploy. So from the other challenge that, in this whole quest of banking the underbanked, that institutions or businesses, you know, becomes a deterrent for them, or becomes kind of a hurdle for them. I wouldn't say a deterrent, hurdle would be the right word. What it does is that from ideating to actually being a productive live business, takes a lot of time, 18 months, 2 years. I've seen people talk about, from ideating to actually going live, sometimes, okay, 12 months, 13, 14 months, but that's a long time. Things change in that period of time, and we've seen that in COVID, right? I mean, same time last year we thought this year was going to be a year where, we would be traveling freely and COVID would have gone. But things either change or don't change. So, to be prepared for such a volatile, or what I'm saying is that from a perspective of, 12 months or 13, 14 months, even 8 to 9 months, is a long time in business. And I think with the kind of attention span that people have today, even businesses have to think about going live as soon as they can. And that's what we bring to the table. We've successfully built, from ideating to go live. Codebase Technologies has been able to get a bank fully running in 45 days. In 45 days from start, where you're just at a conception stage, and 45 days later, you have at least your bank, a vanilla bank probably, but and this is good for somebody who is not a traditional bank and is wanting to be a digital bank with no baggage to carry. Yeah, you can be a bank, functioning bank in 45 days, and that's the power you need. That's what gets people excited. It gets me excited to talk to you. So, when you do have a conversation with me, which you will, at some point, I will explain to you and I'll walk you through these excellent case studies and journeys that we've had with several other customers. During the FinTech Festival, you already, heard me speak with Zain Malas from Capital Bank of Jordan. You today heard me speak with Gold from Centurion. Tomorrow, you'll hear me speak with Olivier Crispin, who's CEO of Zanbank, the first digital bank in UAE of that size that addresses both retail and corporate customers. But the and these successes are important to us and important for you to know as well, because and I would love to share other successes that we've had. uh, it's simply because we've been able to understand why it is important to do things at a faster pace, but also you go back and you look at how do we design a product that can actually go live in that, or how do we construct this, how do we architect this, and create a solution that actually makes sense, right? So if a bank wants to really compete in the space of BNPL, and I know BNPL at large as being Klarna is one of the big players. B2C e-commerce sites are doing BNPL, yes, but as a bank, if you had to, offer BNPL to your SME customers or to your retail customers, right? So SME customers so that they could offer BNPL, but retail customers because they could avail BNPL. How would you go about doing that? It's a different way. You would have to think differently, right? So it's not a e-commerce checkout experience, but you'll have to marry that experience with your traditional underwriting, methodology, or the loan system, microfinance, whatever, credits. You could build that under a credit card experience, or from your construct perspective, it could be part of that offering or that product, that product application in your system. But we got to, so what we do here at Codebase, and why I'm so passionate about the company and why I like to get that message across to you is, we think things differently, and we want, that kind of mix and match of solutions to create a value proposition for you, so that as an institution you can, and bringing back the conversation to banking the underbanked, BNPL might be such a fantastic, leverage, because we know that most of these unbanked, practically all of the unbanked are unbanked for a reason. And while financial literacy and all that is at play, I think simply, clearly, and we saw the statistics there. The graphs said it all, that they just don't have the money to bank, right? So which means that they work with very small amounts of money, cash, and therefore, for us to to elevate that as a society, we'll have to get them better experiences. And of course, there is a dialogue around, whether they should create debt in that community. But that's a different conversation. We're talking about how technology really can be made available to them. So let's look at it from a perspective of, can we provide that technology? Yes, code-based technologies helps you to do that. And with the stack that we have, so it's very easy. So be it something like you want to make you want to use you want to make a payment using social media. You don't want to go into your mobile application or your bank's mobile banking application, do your two-factor authentication, but you want the security of it all. You want to make sure that you're making a payment and the person that you're making the payment to, he realizes that payment, it doesn't get goes elsewhere. So those securities, nobody can hack into your savings account, and all that anxieties around payments and access and so on. If you want to help, I mean, if you want to help people avail financial experiences, um, and move money through social media channels like WhatsApp or Telegram or Signal, or even Facebook Messenger. Yeah, social pay is such a good fit there, from and that's such a good conversation that we're having with so many bankers and so many non-financial companies as well. So we look at completely, from a paradigm shift perspectives, and new paradigms within digital banking is, mobile is always connected. It's real time. It's highly personalized. It's a data driven, data first approach. It's very contextual. And with the whole, and with a vendor like us that has worked hard to make, and of course not only us but the whole, in the whole customer journey, the governance, the risk and the security being mitigated or being addressed. So uh, we do appreciate being part of large open banking forums, because open banking, at least it has brought about a regulation, if you will. At least the central banks have started looking at it, whether it's regulated or whether it's clearly based on a rule book. At least there is oversight, which allows for lesser risk, more governance, I would say, and that makes people want to do away with cash and look at cashless, kind of a thing, cashless economies, and we look at that from a paradigm, and then we construct, and we've done that kind of homework, and therefore created those propositions for you, which we'll be so happy to share, and then we would help you to bring about so many things, the conversations around, should we really get into, I've had conversations where I'm helping people to, from an ideating perspective, where uh, we can do quicker digital onboarding, really seamless. I mean, banks will have that in any case, but I can do a 3-minute onboarding experience, including a proof of life check. So somebody who's unbanked and does not want to get into calls and five different people calling, does not understand Zoom or Skype, but has one easy platform, and a single in that one platform can pick data using APIs. Suppose they have that, from a national identity system. And everything can be done. Think a little bit out of the box and see where we can pick up their identities from. From a telco, of course, minding the rules of data governance and data security. But if we could have that made available, so people didn't have to key in a lot of data. A call could be generated over that app at the end of a particular cycle. I mean, once fed in some data, and a proof of life check call or a video call could be done. I mean, you've got the person digitally onboarded. Now, you could onboard him for a savings, for a CASA account. You could onboard them to give credit. You can onboard them for payments. You can onboard them for any product, but also you could onboard them just to keep a digital identity, which then would help you to access that database, get that identity for other products and services as an institution that you could provide. So there's a lot of merit in that, and that helps us not only solve provide solutions to the market at large, but also to help the unbanked, in the whole scheme of things. So I'm gonna, we did speak to Gold today, and we understood a few things around migrant workers and how we are looking at a construct of so many different things, and how many solutions can be provided for payments, loans, from and that customized experience slide that you saw, concepts like if I can, I'm working here and I'm getting a salary in one part of the world, if I can get a buy now pay later here, but for something that I want to buy for my family in a remote location in Bangladesh, I mean, how beautiful is that, I think those kind of personalized experiences that really help you to win customers and keep customers as an institution. Um, we I spoke to Zain, and in that discussion, what didn't come out, which I can share with you today. Capital Bank, it's launching its neo bank, a challenger bank, right, for Iraq and for Jordan, and 5 minutes to open a bank account from anywhere. That's the kind of uh, uh, you know offering it'll have to its marketplace, right? 10 times more efficient access to new products and services, because they could be commuting in a bus or a public transport or whatever, but they could have, upselling, cross-selling. The bank could, using data analytics, AI built in, like what we have, promote products that could make sense, personalized products to those users. So access to more products and services. I think there's we're seeing from the proposition itself, we're seeing about 80% reduction on operational cost of onboarding, because really, I mean, all you with the infrastructure that you'll have, a strong digital onboarding platform, and the API stack in place, and the whole ecosystem at large. I think the because there's no brick and mortar cost involved, as in new digital bank, you're reducing the cost. What I've known of is onboarding costs are anywhere in the range of about $200 to $400 at, at per person, per individual, one-time cost. But yeah, that's probably what it is. Uh, but the aim, and I'm told that some of these challenger banks in UK have kind of operate on an onboarding cost about 18 to about $24. So, we're talking about 10 times lower the cost, right? So that is where we are seeing that kind of value, that the cost really comes down, and for you it becomes really worthwhile to look at that as a strategy. And I think then you're looking at 75 million potential unbanked, underbanked customers to be, as your target market, because your cost of onboarding is low, your cost of maintenance is low, you're providing them value added services. And I think the experience in itself, opening an account in 5 minutes, is what would make them, make that segment, look at wanting to adopt or get a bank account or avail financial services faster. Paul, my counterpart in Africa, uh, very accomplished in the company as well. He's working with I mean, he's the managing director for Codebase Technologies in Africa, and he's working alongside Codebase Technologies is working alongside InterSwitch on a SaaS model where we are looking at close to about 100 million potential unbanked and underbanked customers in Africa. InterSwitch has access to that, and we are offering, through software as a service, through the SaaS model, we're providing them certain services around banking. It could be all services, it could be certain specific services, depending upon what the bank wants to offer, or what the InterSwitch partner, InterSwitch client would like to offer. But essentially, the speak is let's reduce the acquiring costs, and let's kind of look at um, you know look at offerings that would really be customized to that segment, which probably industry clients would already know. And all we are doing is using our technology for the greater good, understanding what they want, having that conversation with them, and helping them take that out from the ideating to actual deployment very fast so that it doesn't remain on the drawing board for a long time. So those are the successes that we see. Now, I think I've spoken a lot about this, and to empower the unbanked. I want to leave you with this message that to for us to help uh, become or where we see ourselves in that cycle of empowering or ensuring that we cater to the needs of the unbanked and make them up, help provide financial services, get them to have access to financial services. We go about empowering institutions. So we we look at financial institutions. As I said, you could be a fintech, you could be a neobank, it could be a challenger bank, it could be a traditional bank, you could be a lender, you could be an insurer, you could be or any traditional business or any corporate business, not into financial services at all. You could be an e-commerce site and you would want to provide a certain, probably buy now, pay later, or credit or whatever, credit as a service. What we do is we help you, we empower you to offer financial services to the unbanked, and that's how we go about. That's our role to play in this journey of banking the unbanked. So that's thought that I thought would be good that I leave you with. You will have a lot of questions, and I'm happy to give you a lot of answers. I'm on the site all the time. Uh, my team is also there. Ram, KP, Johan, Pa Johan, and other people as well. I mean, these are the guys who actually will be speaking with you. They start these conversations, and I jump in and help to construct or help to address how we can go about solutioning for you. Um, we have a delivery organization that's spread across Middle East, South Asia, and also with a development center in Malaysia, in Kuala Lumpur. So we are both uh, nearshore and offshore. But essentially, since we're a product company, these product offerings are built and and they're modular. So we pick up the pieces and put together a very good solution for you. And we are always happy to sit down and show you how it works, get you to experience it in the best possible way we can, so that you can move very quickly from your ideating phase to actually work with us to make sure that we help you to go live, and we take those products and services that we help you to make technology available to help you to get those products and services out to the marketplace, especially to the unbanked, and make them bankable. I think yeah, that's what I want to that's what I'm passionate about, and happy to answer very specific questions around technology. How would we do that? Yes, my conversation was probably because of a certain, just to drive home a point about how we want to go about doing these things and help you to achieve that objective. but I'm happy. We are always happy to get down into a real deep dive conversation about whether cloud, which cloud services, local public cloud, microservices, how will the production support look like, who will be, yeah, so all those conversations, right? Because I know that's part of deployment or part of the engagement exercises as well, how we construct the deal and so on. So yeah, happy to get into those conversations. Any conversations around financial inclusion, around solving the need for banking the unbanked, anything around building challenger banks. Tomorrow, our managing partner, CEO, and the chief delivery officer who has created these products and who actually takes the responsibility of delivering all these solutions will be speaking to you on digital Islamic finance. Excuse me. And I think Islamic finance, we are recognized as one of the strongest, one of the probably the only company, if I can dare say that has a proper, well-defined Sharia compliant whole stack of Islamic banking product, digital. So and he'll speak to you about that. But yeah, there's a lot of opportunity out there, for Islamic players to provide all this, and we can help you there. We'd love to help you get into a conversation. Ask me, reach out to me through the platform, reach out to my people, and take my time. And I'm happy to get into a conversation at any point of time and walk you through what you'd like to know more. So thank you for spending your time with me today. It was indeed a pleasure to share my thoughts. I look forward to making more conversations with you, and I hope you've enjoyed the session. Continue to have a good day, learn more, and I will always see you when I can. Right? Thank you. Thank you. Enjoy yourself for the day.